Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like you don't recognize the person staring back at you? Somewhere along the way, in the rush of life, in the weight of expectations, in the pain of disappointment, you lost yourself. You gave so much trying to be enough for everyone else that you forgot who you really are. You let mistakes define you, failures label you, and fear control you. And now you wonder, where did I go? Who am I anymore? Friend, you are not the only one. The Bible is full of people who lost themselves. David in the cave, Elijah under the tree, even Peter after denying Jesus. Yet here is the good news. Even when you lose yourself, God never loses sight of you. He still sees who you are, the person He created, the child He calls His own. This story will remind you that no matter how far you feel from yourself or from Him, God still sees you, and He can bring you back. Chapter 1. How we lose ourselves. Losing yourself does not happen in one day. It happens slowly, in little steps. Sometimes it begins with busyness. You pour yourself into work, into family, into achievements, until there is nothing left of you but exhaustion. Sometimes it begins with comparison. You look at others and decide you are not enough. Sometimes it begins with compromise. You make small choices that move you further from God's truth, until suddenly you feel distant from who you were meant to be. The people of Israel knew this struggle. God had chosen them, called them His own. But over and over they turned to idols. In Exodus 32, while Moses was on the mountain, the people grew impatient. They made a golden calf and said, "This is your God, who brought you out of Egypt." In chasing something false, they lost sight of who they really were, God's chosen people. Isn't that how we lose ourselves too? We chase success, approval, or pleasure, and end up forgetting who we are in Christ. But here's the truth. Losing yourself does not erase your identity. Israel was still God's people, even when they turned away. And you are still His child, even when you feel far. Somewhere you lost yourself, yes, but God still sees exactly who you are. Chapter 2. The pain of forgetting who you are. When you lose yourself, the weight is heavy. You wake up each day, but joy feels far away. You go through the motions, but deep down you feel empty. It is like carrying an invisible burden that no one else can see. David understood this pain. In Psalm 142, while hiding in a cave from Saul, he cried out, "Look and see. There is no one at my right hand. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares for my life." David was chosen by God, anointed to be king, yet in that cave he felt forgotten and invisible. That is what happens when we forget who we are. We let loneliness define us. We let failure speak louder than God's promises. We let shame steal our voice. Maybe you know that feeling. You gave your best, but it wasn't enough. You trusted, but people let you down. You prayed, but heaven seemed silent. Slowly, you began to believe that you are not worth much at all. But here's the truth. Forgetting who you are does not change who God says you are. David's cave was not his destiny, and your present pain is not the final word on your life. Chapter 3. God still sees you. Even when you lose yourself, God never loses sight of you. Hagar learned this in the desert. She was a servant, mistreated and cast out, alone with no hope. But in Genesis 16:13, after God met her in her despair, she declared, "You are the God who sees me." She realized that even in the wilderness, she was not invisible to God. The same is true for you. He sees every tear, every struggle, every hidden place where you feel lost. When others overlook you, He notices. When you overlook yourself, He remembers. Jesus showed this heart when he called Zacchaeus by name from the tree, when he saw Nathanael under the fig tree, when he noticed the bleeding woman who touched his cloak. He sees beyond the masks, beyond the mistakes, beyond the layers of pain. He sees the person he created, not the person the world reduced you to. Somewhere you lost yourself, but God still sees who you are. His child, his creation, his beloved. Chapter 4. The identity God gave you. The world tells us identity comes from what we do, what we earn, or how others see us. But the truth is, your identity is not built on success or broken by failure. It comes from the one who created you. When Jesus was baptized in the Jordan, the heavens opened, and a voice said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." Matthew 3:17. Notice, this was before Jesus performed a single miracle, before he preached a sermon, before he went to the cross. The Father's love and approval were not based on performance. They were based on relationship. And the same is true for you. You are not loved because of what you achieve. You are loved because you belong to him. The enemy wants you to believe you are only as valuable as your successes, or as worthless as your failures. But God calls you by a different name: chosen, redeemed, beloved. Ephesians 2:10 says, "We are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works." That is who you are. When you lose yourself, remember this: your true identity never left you. It was spoken over you by God, and nothing, not sin, not shame, not failure, can erase it. Chapter 5. Finding the way back. Losing yourself can feel permanent, like there's no road home. But God always leaves a way back. The prodigal son learned this in Luke 15. He left his father's house, wasted his inheritance, and ended up feeding pigs, hungry and broken. He thought his story was over. But when he came to his senses, he said, "I will go back to my father." He expected anger, maybe rejection, but instead his father ran to him, embraced him, and welcomed him home. That is the heart of God. No matter how far you have gone, no matter what habits or choices have led you astray, he is waiting with arms open wide. Finding the way back begins with honesty, admitting you are lost. It continues with humility, choosing to return even with empty hands. And it ends with restoration, God placing his robe, his ring, his embrace on you again. Friend, you may have lost yourself somewhere on the road, but you are not too far gone. The way back is not about retracing every step. It is about turning your heart toward him. One step back to God is enough for him to meet you with mercy. Chapter 6. Living as who you are in Christ. When God brings you back, he does not just restore what you lost. He teaches you to live in a new way. You are no longer defined by the opinions of others, by your past failures, or by the empty labels the world gave you. In Christ, you are a new creation. The Apostle Paul knew this transformation. Once he was Saul, a persecutor of the church, feared and hated. But after encountering Jesus, his identity changed. He could boldly declare in Galatians 2:20, "I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me." That is the freedom of finding yourself in God. You no longer need to strive to prove who you are. Your worth is secure. Your name is written in his book, and your life is anchored in his love. Living as who you are in Christ means walking with confidence, even when the world doubts you. It means loving others, even when they hurt you, because your heart is healed. It means standing firm in storms, because you know your foundation is unshakable. Somewhere you lost yourself, but in Christ, you find who you truly are. God still sees who you are. There may have been moments when you forgot who you are. You chased approval. You gave in to fear. You let failure define you. Somewhere, you lost yourself. But here's the hope. God never lost you. He still sees the real you, the child he created, the soul he redeemed, the beloved he calls by name. Like Hagar in the desert, you can say, "You are the God who sees me." Like the prodigal son, you can rise and go home to the Father who runs to meet you. Like Paul, you can leave behind your old identity and walk in the freedom of Christ. Friend, your story is not over. God still sees who you are, and He is calling you to live as His beloved once again. Come back to Him. Find yourself again, not in the world, not in success, not in people's approval, but in His love. For in Him, you will always know who you are, and you will never be lost.